Thank you, Rob. Congratulations to you. #1 division in dollars compared to last year. And $61 million in your telethon. You do amazing work. And I know how you did it. I participated in one of your lockups. You're the only group that can convince sane business professionals that it's a great idea and a whole lot of fun to go to jail. Who would have known you meet the nicest people there? So I enjoyed my experience. I know how hard you work, and it's my job to make it easier for you to continue to do the wonderful work that you do at MDA. So we're going to be talking about persuasion. And persuasion is a skill. It can be learned. It's one of the most important skills to have in organizations today. My goal for you is to take what you learned here and immediately apply it when you go back and work with your families and your sponsors, your peers, and your subordinates. So I'm going to start by showing you why we can talk about persuasion. And that's because behavior is predictable. And I'm going to attempt to demonstrate that. And then I'm going to show you what your role is. You have a job in trying to persuade. Your families are giving you clues, your sponsors are giving you clues, and it's your job to pay attention to those clues, know what those clues mean, and use them so that you can be more effective meeting those Friday ride goals, meeting those Shamrock goals, and doing all the wonderful things that you do. And then we'll talk about developing some strategies that will make it a little bit easier for you to persuade people to do what you'd like. Okay, so does that sound like a plan?
Yeah.
It does. That's the one I got. In order to persuade, there's something else that you need to know, and that is rapport. Your job when you persuade is to establish rapport, and this is what rapport is. It's the ability to relate to a person in a way that you create an environment of trust and understanding. It is your job to create rapport with sponsors and with families, not their job to create rapport with you. So you've all experienced rapport. This is not going to be anything new. Have you ever been to a meeting? Certainly like this. I know there are several new people to MDA here today. You may have met some new people, I'm sure, because this is your first or second day. You meet someone and you immediately feel comfortable with them. Has that happened to some of you? That's rapport. Now, perhaps you've been to other organizations, unlike MDA, and you meet someone new and you think to yourself, I just don't feel comfortable with that person. Has that ever happened? That's a lack of rapport. Both cases happened, and in both cases, I'll bet, you couldn't quite say why. That you felt comfortable or you felt less comfortable with that person. But I will tell you, there were things you could see. There were clues that you could see. And I'm going to show you what those clues are so that you can use them. You pay attention and then use them. Now there's something else in addition to knowing about these clues that's important. And that is with rapport, with this feeling of comfort, we're comfortable with people who we perceive to be like ourselves. So as you observe and you see these clues, when someone is like you, it's going to be easier for you to persuade, easier for you to feel comfortable and create rapport with them. When you see some of these clues that indicate they're not like you, in terms of observable behaviors, it's going to be harder. So know that's who it's going to be more difficult to persuade. So if you see these clues and hear these clues, how many of you contact sponsors first over the telephone? Show of hands. It's mostly everybody. You're going to hear clues on the phone so that you can be prepared and be ready to persuade effectively. Okay? So our job is to create rapport, it's to pay attention to these clues, and what I'm going to do is organize these clues into 2 dimensions of behavior so it's a little bit easier to gather some of these clues. What we're going to do is say there are really 2 categories of assertiveness. Even though we know there are varying degrees, we're going to make two categories. And we're going to say some people tend to be more assertive, more forceful, and some people tend to be less assertive, less forceful. And it's not better or worse, it's just different. And each one of you are primarily either more assertive, more forceful, or less assertive, less forceful. And remember what I said it before about we're comfortable with people who we perceive to be like ourselves? If you're more forceful, do you think you'd be comfortable with more forceful people? And I see the nods, that's correct. So if you're working with sponsors who are more forceful and you're more forceful, it will be easy for you to create rapport, just be yourself. Now, if you are more assertive, more forceful, and you're working with a sponsor who is less assertive, less forceful, it's going to be a little harder. And it's your job to adapt to them. You're going to have to do a couple different things to make them feel comfortable with you. It's not their job to change, because most people are unaware of this. So when you're working with a sponsor, I know you have lots and lots of data that you could use. You have your statistics for what it costs for the treatments that you give, how many patients how many families you serve. You can talk a lot of specific facts and information, and you should when you're trying to persuade someone who's controlled. When you're talking to someone who's very responsive, which would be like me, talk about the feelings of the people, the teams in the stride and rides, how you've impacted them, how they feel as a result of participating, and this would be the right language to speak to them. You've got to be bilingual, as I say, to talk facts and talk opinions, because you'll be meeting and working with both types of people. Okay? When I started, I said I wanted to make it easier for you to do your work. That's my goal. Do you think having this skill will make it a little easier for you to do your work? Okay, very, very good. Because, I know what you do is hard. And I know a little bit about what you do. I mean, I've seen lots and lots of telephones. I've actually read through some of your marketing materials. And I saw something in one of your marketing materials that really stood out. And you said, someday there will be a day. There will be a day when you discover the cure for all of these horrible, horrible diseases. I'm hoping that with your persuasion skills, you can persuade even more sponsors to donate even more money so that you can get more research dollars, so that someday comes that much sooner. Best wishes for your continued success, and thank you.